Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today. Your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about now the new look FBI with a new team at the top, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and these are people that are committed to enacting the policy platform of President Trump. And hopefully cleaning up the mess that the FBI, the activist mess that the FBI had become in the preceding years. Now, what should be their priorities? Now, I'm sure they've got many day-to-day priorities, chasing criminals and so on. And one would hope that would be their main priority. Clearly wasn't. Their priority has been political for some years now. And I would argue that they were just running a protection racket to protect the globalist project and to make sure anyone who questioned it or was against it there was some sort of device or very imaginative use of the law to go prosecute innocent private citizens and either imprison them and or bankrupt them. So let's have a look at that. Now, there are some areas of my concern, because if the infrastructure that facilitated these things is not dismantled, and if people do not get prosecuted and go to prison, then the globalists can simply reactivate this as soon as they can get hold of the levers of power again. Now, they could rig the next congressional elections, for example. They could do it under the very noses of the Republicans or of the Trump administration. Look what they did in 2020. Even while Trump was president, and the globalists were still able to pull off a massive fraud on the 2020 presidential election. A mind-boggling 20+ million votes they conjured up out of thin air and delivered to the candidate who's already mostly incoherent half the time, and they could deliver the presidency to just a stuffed shirt of a candidate. So there's a few things to look at. Now, I would, and I'll just go through them here, but I would argue that in the 2016 election, they were pretty confident Hillary would get up, because the entire media now, all the media messaging and everything was on Hillary's side. But already the people were sick of the globalist project, and they voted in President Trump. Now, my take is that if you look at the sort of the averaging numbers, election vote counting numbers, I figure they probably conjured up 3 or 4 million votes for Hillary in that election. But they were confident she would win. They just wanted to make sure she didn't get across the line by an inch or two. They wanted it to be a clear victory, and I think that they conjured up 3 to 4 million votes, somewhere in that region. Maybe even a few more, somewhere between 3 and 5 million, I would take. That's the fraudulent amount of votes they conjured up for Hillary there. Now, given that Hillary constantly went on about, I got the majority of votes, I got the vote, I think that illustrates her frustration and those around her frustration. We cheated, and we still fucking lost. I mean, gee whiz. Couldn't you bums even get the cheating right? But Trump did better in the marginal states and got across the line in that sense, and so that delivered the presidency to him, much to the surprise of that's much to my surprise, by the way. I looked at the media messaging being 100% against Trump and thought there's no way that Hillary could lose. But there you go. Sometimes you need to believe in the people, because they often. More often than you think, the people actually do get it right, and they did in that instance. Now, looking at the prosecutions of Trump and the team, whether it's General Mike Flynn or anyone else, the bullshit prosecutions about Russian interference and all those sorts of things, that was something that I looked at with much suspicion first off. Well, why are they doing this? How is this happening? Why does the Trump, Jeff Sessions? Why does he appear to be sort of utterly impotent in the face of these constant attacks? And this is when the Republicans held the majority in the Senate, the House, and the presidency, and still they were able to attack Trump from all sides and cause much much mayhem to his presidency. There were court cases, there were leaks, and it was just a debacle. And I was surprised they were able to pull off so many attacks. There was just constant attack at all sides, and this had the effect of really restricting the effectiveness in terms of doing legislation, that sort of thing. Also, there were many Republicans that were the rhinos that were also ready to sell out Trump only because he wasn't on board with the globalist project. But coming back to the use of the FBI, the CIA, effectively all the public service institutions to go after Trump and his team. I mean, Mike Flynn, that particularly irritates me because the FBI went with Mike. We just want to have a little chat. Just a quick chat. There's no need for a lawyer. And then they used that to go after him. And for some reason, the Sessions and the Trump team generally were just impotently unable to help General Flynn. And he was, as I understand it, at least, the legal fees alone have came close to bankrupting him. And yet he committed no crime. It was all invented, the stuff they went. So this is all, so these communications between the various people and groups within the FBI, or indeed outside groups, and that were egging them on, the use of activist NGOs, messaging in the media. So there are three areas here. Election rigging is number one. Number two is rigging the judicial system, whether it be court cases, appointing activist judges, liaison with activist judges, or activist prosecutors, rogue prosecution, like against Trump in the last few years, and then media messaging. Those three things are the big three things that need to be looked at. Now, I'd go back to the days of Twitter and then tie down the coordination between Twitter and the people in Twitter and the Democrats and the Democrat operatives that were operating either in the public service or directly in the Democrat Party establishment, or that were sprinkled out amongst the activist NGOs receiving US aid money. Every payment, every communication, every coercion, every email, and so on and so forth, every text needs to be looked at, and that web of interaction needs to be, I think, nailed down, and the people are responsible. Somebody said, look, you got to get, like when Twitter took Trump off Twitter, you got to get Trump off Twitter. I mean, he's talking about the election we just rigged in 2020. It was a massive fucking rigging where we conjured up 20 million votes out of thin air. We can't have that sort of thing again. You got to take him off now. But he's the sitting elected president. Don't care, take him off. Who made that order? Who communicated with who contacted who? Now, and that media messaging and the control over it and how it was handled, and the inserting of radical activists into the media organizations. I had a look at the list of US aid monies paid to media organizations, and they haven't finished the auditing yet, but I had a look at it. And every one of those media organizations received money, and every one of the NGOs or the individuals that receive, like former politicians that still have a public platform, any one of those, every one of them, every single fucking one was on the payroll of US aid, and they constantly came at this endless stream of anti-Trump propaganda, and every one of them was being paid to do it. There's nothing organic about it at all. These people being paid to get them to say, look, we want you today to say something negative about Trump, say that he's literally Hitler and all. So the literally Hitler narrative was all bought and paid for. There was nothing organic about any of it. So this too needs to be not just an audit where this money's cut off, but the people that received the money, that received their orders to do, they need to be prosecuted, in my view, or hauled before senatorial committees. That, as we've seen with Steve Bannon and all this sort of stuff, the way they treated him, they can drag you before a senatorial. You can be dragged before a House committee. It doesn't matter. You're dragged before some sort of political activist committee, and they can find something that can be demanded of you that you can't or won't or are unable to deliver. That can be then cited as contempt, and then you can be sent to prison. So So every device available needs, in my view, needs to be used to go after these people. They were corrupt. They received corrupt payments. They acted maliciously against the elected representatives of the people. They perceived themselves as above the law. They broke the law. They, in the case of the Justice Department, they invented crimes and then got the Farney Willises and the fucking what's her face, Letitia James and those people to go, Judge Merkin, to go and, people were communicating with that judge in New York, do this, say that, find this ruling, do such and such. We've organised a stacked jury for you. We've done this, and so on. We've got media. We'll put out media pieces about what a great judge you are. Okay, we'll do this. We'll do that. If anything goes wrong, we'll protect you with a job. A nice paying cozy job. So, all these sorts of things, all these communications will be around and they need to be chased down. There's been a lot of shredding and deleting, but the task forces need to be put on this to find whatever is remaining, whatever can be redug up, and then these people prosecuted. Now, after the the Hillary election, where they invented 3 to 5 million votes, and Trump surprised them and outraged them by getting up. And then there was the 2020. Now, the 2020 election, they were not going to make that mistake. It was going to be beyond any doubt. Now, if we look at the chain of custody, disputed signature matching, all that sort of stuff, it comes to like 23 million votes, give or take. And if you look at the numbers that track the average voting numbers across all presidential elections, Biden being by far and away the weaker candidate who did no campaigning and was a very poor speaker, he would have got about 61 million votes, give or take. So we can say with reasonable surety that they invented 20 million plus votes, just pulled it out of their ass. Remember, Obama held the all-time record of 69 million votes, and Biden allegedly got 81 million votes. Yeah, sure he did. Now, there's a lot of people involved in that, and they were quietly being put in place before the presidential election, so they'd have it all nailed down tight. So there are a lot of people involved in that. In my view, they all need to be prosecuted. And whether that's the people that arranged for the drop boxes, or it doesn't matter, but they need to be chased down, and any that were involved in any sort of tampering with the election outcome should be prosecuted, and if found guilty, put in prison. Now, the three levels here of setting up those sham bullshit prosecutions going after Trump. Again, there was a lot of backroom organization, a lot of people being paid off, looked after, directed to do this, compromised, bribed. It doesn't matter, but whatever devices and methodologies be used, these need to be uncovered and all these people prosecuted. Even again, the dragging in front of a senatorial committee or a House committee or something like that, and finding them in contempt of something, and they'll get 4 months in prison. Now, do I like this idea of weaponizing law? Absolutely not. It's terrible and it should never be done, but it's already weaponized. It's not as if the weaponizing is about to come or about to happen. It's already been totally weaponized, and the justice system has been infiltrated with activist judges at all levels. This needs to be understood. And the idea, the whole idea of making these people pay. The reason why people accept independent judges and independent laws isn't because they like the independence or something. They don't. But they don't want the other guy having the power to make that decision over them. And it's only that, well, I'll give up my power to make the decisions provided you give up your power. So we'll both put our guns down at the same time. It's that type of, and that's why we've got independent courts. Not because everybody wants to control the courts. You want to be able to send someone you don't like to prison, which is where the globalists arrived at. Their control of the public services and the political establishment was such that they thought they could get away with it for all time. So there now needs to be a price for them to pay, which brings them back to independent courts actually are a good idea, but only the threat of them going to prison, of them being bankrupt, only that will bring them to the table. the idea of, well, it's in the interest of everyone to have an independent court. Yeah, fuck you, buddy. I want to send people I don't like to prison. So you have to bring them back to the middle. And the only way is if they think they're going to suffer from it. And therefore, that's vital. Is it desirable or should it be like this? Absolutely not. But it needs to be done, and it must be done, I believe, to restore sanity to the legal process. Similarly, citing judges. I don't like that either, because again, it's politicians tampering with the law, but it's already being tampered. It's already infected with activists and political infiltration. So the idea of appeal courts and how appeals are handled, that now needs to be revisited, because there are so many activist judges now in the legal system. And we need to, I think, revisit this all across the Western world and accept that now the law has been, or the legal process, jurisprudence has been so hopelessly compromised at all levels. Similarly, in the teaching law in university, I'm surprised that whether I'm talking to judges today or lawyers or recent graduates, law graduates from university, so, well, did you study the Inquisition? Have you studied all the great travesties of justice over time, where the law was hijacked by ideologies, various, communist or whatever, or in the case of the Inquisition, the church effectively, using it to go after supposed heretics and those in league with the devil and so on. Have you looked at that and looked at those and seen how whenever the law is used for political, ideological, whatever reasons, that its purpose is being usurped and trashed? And they know, oh no, we never covered that. Oh no, we didn't know. And they see the law as a tool for instituting social justice. Whereas if they studied the law, things like the Inquisition and so on, they would hopefully come away with a very different view. So it must be compulsory that the great usurpation of judicial and legal independence and application of facts and evidence, those great usurpations of history, are studied and studied carefully, and that people are reminded that once you move away from facts and evidence, you're into the area of the territory of ideology, which will directly lead to the degradation of the moral quality of the law. So these are the things that I would like the FBI to focus on. The instructions that went from the body politic to the media organizations to, okay, we want you to do a hit piece on Trump today. That sort of stuff. That all needs to be looked at, and again, people prosecuted. If these organizations were paid to do it, then it's corruption, and they were paid to spread these lies and disinformation, and they need to be held accountable for that. There's one final point that I'll add to this, that what I've noticed is a lot of the people that are getting fired and losing their jobs, who are, if you like, kingpins in the globalist sort of corrupt establishment, they are instantly and immediately getting new jobs, at times on better money and so on. Even if they're prosecuted and they can't work, their wives or partners are suddenly being given very well paid jobs. So these people are still being very well looked after financially. They've performed services for the globalist cult and cabal, and for that loyalty they're being rewarded. And that's very political, that sort of loyalty. Political parties reward loyalty, and this has got all those paw prints over it. So these people have to be chased down. They have to suffer a penalty for this. Otherwise, they'll just sit on ice for a few years, then come back and begin harassing us all over again. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.